Hey everyone! Welcome to Crime Family. Today I have two stories to talk about. These cases both have similar storylines with similar perpetrators and victims. One is much more small town, while the other gained widespread attention. These are the attempted hitman stories of Nicole Doucet Ryan and Dalia Dippolito. Let's get started. So this first case, I'm going to talk about Nicole Doucet Ryan and Michael Ryan. And this case takes place in Digby, Nova Scotia. Digby is on the western shore of the Annapolis Basin, right by the little opening that connects to the Bay of Fundy. And if you Google Digby, you'll see like the stereotypical image of what I think Nova Scotia is known for. It's like a little fishing town with a big lighthouse. It's quaint and beautiful. It kind of makes me homesick, to be honest. But as we all know, even a little picture-perfect town like this isn't exempt from murderous intentions. Do you guys know anything about this case before I get started?
No, I've actually haven't heard it at all. I have no idea what this case is about.
Me neither, which, I don't know, every time it's from Nova Scotia or something, I always just assume I know it because it's such a small place, but I don't know anything about it. I've never heard of it, so yeah, excited to listen.
Yeah, same. Every time I feel like it's close to home, it always makes it that much more interesting. For us, anyway.
I always assume, I'm like, oh my god, do I know any of the people?
I know.
There's like a million people in Nova Scotia. Obviously, you don't know everyone, but I always my first thought is like, oh, who do I know that knows this person?
I know. I think the same thing. Nicole Doucet meets Michael Ryan in May of 1990 in Ontario. He was 25 and in the military, and she was 19, having moved to Ontario from Nova Scotia to get a teaching degree. They got married 2 years later, but since Mike is in the military, he gets posted to Alberta and then back again to Ontario. Nicole realizes that she wasn't really happy with his lifestyle. Like, she didn't want to keep moving around the country, and she wanted to move back to her hometown and settle down. So she does. She moves back to Digby and finds a job at the high school that she went to growing up, and she buys a house with her dad. Meanwhile, Mike is kind of like, just like, what the hell? He's still living in Ontario. He didn't want her to just go and buy a house without him because he wasn't sure if he was even going to be able to move to Nova Scotia anytime soon. But anyway, she does it anyway. But they're married and they try to make things work. They start this long distance relationship, and this is 4 years into the marriage. I don't know, I guess good for her. She knows what she wants and she just kind of goes for it and just kind of like leaves her husband in the dust. But they do try to like make it work, I guess. Mike says that this is like the start of the friction in their marriage. I mean, for me, if my partner just like moved halfway across the country, just buys a house that I didn't want him to, there might be a little bit more than friction in the relationship. But anyway, it is what it is. I'm not going to judge. They're just trying to make it work. 2 years later, Mike gets posted to Aldershot, which is in Digby County, Nova Scotia. It's still like a 2-hour drive to his wife's house, but he does try and visit her every weekend. They end up having a daughter together, and Mike says that Nicole's family was really always up in arms about how they were raising their daughter. He explains that Nicole and her sister Peggy would argue all the time about Nicole's daughter, as Peggy babysat her regularly, and apparently there was one fight about a dirty diaper, and the sisters ended up just not talking for years after that. That's just kind of the dynamic in this family, was they were always bickering about seemingly petty shit.
It was one dirty diaper.
Yeah, just something happened about a dirty diaper, and that was just like the end of their relationship for years.
Wow.
You know, probably just like mounting, stuff just kept getting, and then that was like just it tipped it over the edge.
Yeah.
Just tipped over the diaper pile. So Mike eventually retires from the military in 2004, but he says the bickering between Nicole and her family just keeps getting worse. They argue all the time about money and property, and things got violent, threats were being made, and there actually had to be a peace bond between Nicole and her father. Mike does seem to have a good head on his shoulders for the most part, because after years of telling Nicole that they need to move away from her toxic family, he finally has had enough and he moves, leaving Nicole behind. Sometimes you just gotta cut the toxic family out of your life, wipe your hands and move on, and that's what Mike did. He said the split was amicable up until, that is, he starts dating a 19-year-old woman named Shannon. I guess Nicole, was kind of hurt about this because, well, she's pissed and she starts lashing out at Mike. She sends him emails saying, I could rip your head apart. It seems like a bit of jealousy starting to show in Nicole. She thought that this relationship was just a fling and that Mike would eventually come around and go back to her, but he doesn't, and Mike ends up filing for divorce. So this totally makes sense to me because, I can just imagine him being surrounded by her toxic family for years, finally being able to step out and step back from it all and just realize, how shitty it was with a fresh pair of eyes and just be like, I'm not going back to that. Nicole really doesn't take his filing for divorce very well at all. She falls into a depression and tells Mike that she's been overdosing on her medications. She has no one else in her life, so she decides to reconcile with her parents, but her anger and jealousy towards Mike continues to grow. She just randomly decides not to want to share custody of their daughter with Mike anymore. I don't know, maybe it's just out of spite, or maybe it's something more, but kind of just a little sidebar. I just want to say how shitty it is when parents use their kids against each other to hurt one another. It's one thing to say that, yes, Mike hurt her by divorcing her and finding a new young girlfriend, but trying to keep the kid away from her father for her own selfish reasons is really sad for the little girl. There's no need to, just fuck up her life because her mother's got hurt. Anyway, Nicole begins reporting to the RCMP, which is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police here in Canada, that she needs protection from her ex-husband, Mike. And they ask her, why does she need protection? They ask if he's beating her, if he's threatening her. And every time she says no to everything. She's always just no. 2 weeks later, though, she calls and basically says now that everything the police had asked her before, she's now saying that everything is true, that he is beating her, that he has threatened her. And she tells them that Mike is driving up and down her street stalking her. A couple weeks after this initial talk with the RCMP, Nicole refuses to let Mike take their daughter for her scheduled visits over the weekend. And she just tells Mike that she's pissed and he can't take her. The neighbors call the police at night because they say they see a suspicious vehicle circling the house and they assume that it's Mike stalking Nicole. The police find out that it's not Mike because they go to his house and they find out that he's been there the whole time. Nicole says that Mike allegedly threatens to burn her house down, and she moves out of her house that same night because she's apparently so terrified. The police do track Mike down and he's arrested and charged with uttering a threat. Mike claims that this never happened and Nicole is lying about everything. And Mike claims that all of these accusations against him from Nicole are completely false. So when Nicole moves out of her house, Mike takes this opportunity to go to that house and just grab some of his stuff that was left there while no one else is there. And while he's doing this, he's actually ambushed by Nicole's father and brother in the driveway. They come at him with a steel pipe. Shannon, his girlfriend, is in the truck and she calls 911. Mike gets to the hospital and he has to get his head stitched up, and Nicole's father is actually charged with assault. So she has the whole family in on this hating Mike situation. So it's at this point that Nicole feels that she has no other option and that Mike being dead is her best bet to move on with her life. The first thing she does is Nicole reaches out to a man named Hubert Thibault, and he's related to Nicole's family somehow. This guy goes by the nickname Yogi. Nicole reaches out to him first, and she wants to buy a gun from him, and she asks him to kill her husband. So this guy, Yogi, he's actually interviewed in a W5 Til Death Do Us part episode. And Yogi admits that yes, he was in on it and he had originally agreed to go along with it. Nicole and her father paid him $25,000 and he was told that he would get the rest when Michael was dead. Nicole gives Yogi a picture of her husband and a piece of paper with his address, and there's some random notes about his schedule on it, like he goes for a bike ride in the morning and at night he's always in his hot tub, he has a greenhouse, etc. Stuff like that. So Yogi claims that Nicole's father was the one that gave Yogi the $25,000, and he eventually backs out, but he keeps the money and says in the interview that he was keeping it just in case he needed a lawyer later on down the road if any of this came out and anything came out against him. And so, I mean, what's anyone going to do at this point, right? Like, he keeps the money. They're not going to go to police because that would just require, like, too much explanation, too many questions. So I guess Nicole just writes it off as a loss. Yogi says that he had backed out because there was, like, too many rumors going around in their little town about what was going on. So you think Nicole would, like, really, like, just cut her losses at this point. And she just lost a bunch of money. People know what's going on. Maybe, like, move on, but that doesn't happen. About 2 weeks after this original attempt to hire somebody, Nicole gets a call from a complete stranger, and he says he's a friend of theirs, and he heard that she had a problem that she needed help with. She goes along with it, and she agrees to meet this guy in a parking lot at a gas station and talk about the details. There's actually video and audio of this encounter, so I'm going to play a little bit of their conversation for you.
So what's up?
Well, I need the job done.
Yeah.
Need it done this weekend.
Yeah.
Is it possible?
Anything's possible.
Okay. How much are you asking?
Well, how much are you willing to pay?
Well, that isn't the question.
Well, first of all, let's get things on the table.
Okay.
You want it done this weekend?
Yeah.
Is there a particular reason why you want it done this weekend?
Before April 1st.
Any reason for that, or?
I've been waiting long enough.
Because sometimes, I'm just saying, in my business, sometimes people want messages sent, sometimes they want certain things done to the body, right? But in this case, right, you just want them back. All right. Hey, if you don't mind me asking, is there any reason, like, is he f***ing around? Was he f***ing around on you, or?
Oh, yes, but he's always done that.
Has he?
That wasn't a big deal.
No? Jeez, you're a fine wife to have.
It wasn't a big deal.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the straw that broke the camel's back?
Everything he took.
Really?
And destroyed.
Yeah, that's
Attitude.
really?
How much can he take?
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you, he takes so much. Personally, he takes so much. Any beatings, like he beat you or anything? Ever laid a hand on you? No. Let's put the cards on the table, right? And if you don't want it done, that's fine. But if you want it done,
I want it done.
what time do you think would be a good time? Like, what time would he be home? He doesn't work weekends.
Well, sometimes he does. He's in and out constantly.
Okay.
But you can knock on the door with an envelope, and he will open the door.
You start to think like me. Huh? You've been giving this some thought.
He will open the door.
How long have you been planning this or thinking about it?
Since September.
Since September. Yeah. So you're officially separated or divorced or? No. So you're officially married? Like you're still married to him?
Yeah.
Oh, so this might work out very good for you. If something were to happen to him. Huh? A bit of a tragedy.
It would.
Good.
I'm still in love.
See? So now you have to be very upset when they come knocking on your door. So very in love. That's good. I like that. So we have a deal?
We have a deal.
Good. Do you want fucking, like, if that happens, if she's in the way sort of thing, is that a problem? Well, it'll be done. Trust me. When you get out of here now, you're not going to see your husband alive again.
Okay.
You're good with that? That's it, then.
I'm stuck, okay? Whether you are legit or not, whether you're a police officer or not, I'm dead.
You want him dead, don't you?
Yes.
So, what do you guys think of that video and audio?
I mean, I don't know. I remember I was saying this when I first watched it, but I don't know if it's just in hindsight because I know he's a police officer. But I was like, it just seems like he is, like, just the things that he's saying, just the questions that he's asking. Like, it just seems like it's very obvious he's trying to get all the information and get her to say the exact things that are gonna, like, are gonna, like, indict her or whatever, make it look like she's obviously wanting this to happen. So that's what I thought. I thought it was very obvious. And even I guess towards the end there when she's like, I don't know if you're legit or if you're a police officer or whatever. So maybe even she knew or whatever. But I think you might want to know for sure that the person you're hiring is legit before you start. You don't say that at the end of it. Like, oh, I don't know if you're legit. Like, maybe figure that out before.
Yeah, well, actually, I don't think it shows in this video, but there is like, this like continues on, and there's actually some before this, and she's like, I'm starting to get paranoid. I just want to like make sure. She's like, can you like lift up your shirt so I can see if you're wearing a wire? And he like gets super pissed, and he's like, what do you think this is? And then he doesn't actually do it, and she's just like, okay. And then they continue on. So she like is kind of asking for that, but doesn't really press into it very hard because he just kind of like gets mad, and then they move on.
Oh, because obviously he was wearing a wire, so that's why he didn't want to show.
Like, and she is concerned, but like not enough to like stop and get out of there, right? Like she acts like she's gonna go through with this.
Does she just decide halfway through, like, oh, well, if he's a cop, then I'm going to jail? Because at the end, she seems defeated. Like, I don't know if you're legit or if you're a cop. Like, she just come to terms with it by that point?
I know, yeah. I don't know why she continues on. I'd be out of there.
Yeah, it's just weird.
When I was like first watching it, like, just to look, like she's had the whole time she's in the car with this guy, she has like a smile on her face, like she's enjoying the fact that someone else is gonna kill her husband for her. I don't know, something about that just strikes as me as evil. Why put your whole family through something like that, especially your child? Like, he doesn't want to be with you. Get over it. Get a divorce, like most everybody does these days, and like move on. Like, you obviously moved away from Ontario because you didn't want to be there and you didn't want to move around, so you made that decision yourself to move away. So why can't you just move away and just like leave him alone? Like, why do you have to kill him?
Yeah, and like he was getting a divorce and he had already moved on with another woman, so you'd think like, you know, he's moving on. And yeah, so she's just super adamant about this happening. Like,
I get the jealousy part. Like, I get like he moved away and then like not that long after he got somebody else. Like, I get the jealousy part of that, but like, grow up and like you have a daughter and a family and like just move on. Like,
some people just can't.
I know people like that frustrate me though.
I know. I think it's like, I don't know, maybe it's like the rejection for her that she just can't take. And I don't know, because she thought he would come back to her. But she seems to hate him, right? So why would I guess she just hates him after all this. And I think it's important to note that like the officer asked why she wants this done. Like, did he ever beat her or anything? And she always says no. Like, no. And then she says just because like he took so much and, you know, how much can you take? And just his attitude towards everything is like enough to make her want to do this.
Well, and some people are just super vindictive. Like, some people just hate someone so much they just cannot get over it. And like the only way they will ever be satisfied is if they actually kill them. Like, some people are just super evil like that.
I don't know. Like, maybe because all of us are like, the three of us are like such nice people that we can't, like, if we don't hate somebody that much that we want to kill them. Like, there are times where we get frustrated and like...
Speak for yourself. I'm just
like,
kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, there's like times we all get frustrated and like we don't want to see that person and we just can't like bear to face them anymore. But like, nothing would cross my mind, but like, I'm going to kill that bitch or kill that bastard because he looked at me wrong. Like, I don't know.
I feel like it has a lot to do with pride, but I mean, that can go both ways. Like, she has so much pride where it's like, he broke up with me and did all this, so I have to get back to him. But for me, it'd be like, well, my pride is saying that I'm just going to move on. Like, you know, so it's like people see it differently, I guess.
And they have a daughter together. Like you kill him, you're going to go to jail and he's dead. Like, then she has nobody. Like, she has no parents. Like, you're not really...
Oh, no,
like,
it's
you're not looking
selfish.
after her. Yeah, it is really selfish.
Yeah. She just, it's really like her own selfish needs. Selfish. Apparently. I mean, selfish. Like, that's how it seems like so far. And like, we'll have more to discuss as I go on, but we'll just see how it goes. So like I said, you can hear in the audio, like Nicole specifically says that Mike never laid a hand on her, but he basically cheated on her all the time. But that wasn't why she wanted this done. She was just like fed up with everything he took and destroyed and his attitude about it all. She says that if his girlfriend is in the way, then she doesn't mind if she has to go too. She says she's been planning this since September, and this conversation is happening in March, I believe. Like, that's what the date stamp says on the video. So that's like 6 months of her planning this. And apparently, like, some sources say this was like her 4th attempt to hire a hitman. All the other 3 times had fallen through. So she's like super adamant about this. It is actually an undercover police officer, obviously. The local police had gotten a tip from an informant about Nicole's plan, and it was that officer that made the call to Nicole randomly, obviously to set all this up. And right after she leaves the car that night, after setting all this up and talking to the officer, discussing money and how she wants it done and when she wants it done, as soon as she gets out of the car, she's arrested that night. During the police interrogations, she says she wanted Mike dead because the police couldn't protect her and her daughter anymore from him. They tried to get specifics out of her, like why she needed protection, and she's continually vague. Like, he's coming for her. She says that he says he's going to destroy the family, and he continually calls her a selfish bitch and that she's a psycho and that her daughter should be taken away from her. She is placed in the care of the East Coast Forensic Psychiatric Hospital in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, to see if she's mentally fit to stand trial. And even there, she again denies that her husband was ever physically abusive towards her. And she says that she needed him dead before April 1st because they had a custody hearing coming up, and she just didn't want to look at him again. So she is deemed fit to stand trial. She is charged with the offense of counseling the commission of an offense not committed on March 17th, 2008. And she actually only spends 1 month in custody, and then she's let out on $40,000 bail. Almost 2 years later is when the trial happens, 21 months later, and a lot has changed. Nicole is now divorced, and she's changed her last name back to her family name, so it's just Nicole Doucet. But most interestingly, her story and her defense has now drastically changed from what she first told police. She's now claiming years of abuse, over 15 years of physical violence and bullying from her husband. She said he did things like pinning her against the wall and choking her, and that he had once put a gun to her head. She said that she had tried multiple times to reach out to the RCMP for help, but they wouldn't do anything to help her. And no RCMP officer or Mike was brought up to testify in this trial at all. The defense does manage to bring up everything they could find from Mike's past to paint him in a bad light. He was once in a bar fight in 1996, and he was convicted of road rage in 2007. And there's also some reports from the military saying that he had anger issues and that he had to go to anger management. These are the only things that were ever held against him. In March 2010, a judge actually finds Nicole not guilty, and she's acquitted. They say that they do believe that Mike was abusive and manipulative, and they said that anyone in the same circumstances as Nicole would have done the same thing. The charges were also dropped against Nicole's father as well, due to a legal technicality. In June of 2011, the Crown appeals in the Nova Scotia Court of Appeals, stating that they find it hard to believe that Nicole didn't have any other avenue to escape from her husband if it was true that she was being abused, because Mike wanted a divorce, he was moving on, he had moved out, he had found a new partner, and yet she was still claiming abuse. And she had all of her family around her for support. And the Nova Scotia Court of Appeals acquits her again because they do believe that she was a battered woman. The Crown is not giving up, though, and they appeal again, and this time to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court actually does reverse the acquittal, and they say that her defense of duress does not apply in this case, but instead of granting a new trial, they say that she's suffered enough and basically that she's done with this conviction, and that's just the end of it. So she's not going for a new trial. She's not, being charged or convicted again. She can't be charged for the same crime again, and she's free to go. And they still do believe that she was actually a battered woman. So Mike is now really in the media scene as a villain, and in the Supreme Court's eyes as well. His name was definitely dragged through the mud in the newspapers, the local media. The RCMP are dragged, through the mud as well, as the court says that the RCMP were much more eager to protect Mike rather than his abused wife that he was torturing for 15 years. The Commission for Public Complaints against the RCMP is asked to investigate and to look into the RCMP's role in all of this. They said that they had failed to protect Nicole from domestic violence. And Nicole claims that she reached out to them multiple times and nobody did anything. But they find that after interviewing all the RCMP officers involved, interviewing the lawyers, and going through all the trial transcripts, they find that the Supreme Court's condemnation of the RCMP was really incorrect. Nicole had repeatedly denied to multiple people, multiple RCMP officers when she was being arrested, when she was talking to the undercover cop. She denied being abused to various people, all up until she needed a good defense in court. W5 was actually able to talk to Nicole and interview her and talk to her about everything after everything was over. Like, when she was asked why she never brought up the abuse before she went into court, she said it's because that it's shameful and it's kind of, embarrassing to talk about. So Mike was actually awarded full custody of their daughter in 2008, and he moved back to Ontario with Shannon, and they had 2 other kids together. I don't understand why Mike would be granted full custody if the courts believe that he was such an abusive person. Like, why would they give the daughter to him? So, what do you guys think about the situation? Like, Nicole is claiming self-defense, claiming she was abused for 15 years. She's only said this when she needed a defense, and she gets acquitted of everything. Like, do you guys think it's, I don't know, I don't want to victim blame or anything, but it just seems kind of unbelievable.
I'm actually pretty shocked that she didn't get anything. Like, I feel like, even talking to that police officer, like, she wanted to kill her husband. Like, there's evidence there that she wanted to kill her husband. I don't understand why anybody would think otherwise. Like, and she even said to the officer in the video that he wasn't, like, he never touched her, he never abused her, because that's one thing he asked.
Yeah, but you don't always say, like, that it happened to you. Like, what she was saying, like, is a shameful, embarrassing. Like, I feel like there's many cases of that where, like, people just don't come forward, like, till many years later. Or, because that's what people always say, like, when those, like, allegations come out against, like, certain people, and they say, well, how come she didn't come forward, like, 20 years ago when it happened? It's like, well, that's the thing. It's like battered women syndrome. It's like you don't actually come forward, ever. Unless you're, like, compelled to for some other reason, which maybe she was at that moment. You could argue that maybe she just needed a defense in court, but, like, I don't know. I think it kind of is in line with lots of other, like, stuff I've read or things I've seen, but I don't know.
I feel like the defensive duress, though, is like you're actually under attack at that moment and you decide to kill somebody in self-defense, then that's considered duress. But she was planning this for months, so it's not like he was attacking her and she killed him. And it was like he was, like I said before, divorcing her and moving on and had a new girlfriend, right? And somehow he was still, like, abusing her constantly, I don't know. It just seems like a little bit crazy that it went that far. And she still was able to claim duress, which was eventually dropped. But she still got out of court because of that.
Yeah, like, I don't like how they, like, made him the villain out of this whole thing. Like, maybe, like, he might have done those things to her, but, like,
well,
like,
if he abused his wife, then he's a piece of shit. So maybe he's supposed to be the villain. I don't know. Allegedly, I don't know.
But then he wouldn't have got custody of his child, though. If he was, like, abusing the mother.
What was the name of that other bitch from the last episode? Who got custody of her kids after doing all that, like, murdering her husband or whatever? What was her name? Shirley?
Yeah, Shirley Turner.
It could happen.
Obviously, Mike is saying that he's completely innocent, like, his wife is delusional. Even if he did abuse her, right? Like, you hire a hitman, I feel like you shouldn't just get acquitted.
Yeah, it's obviously, like, intent to murder.
Yeah.
Or have someone murder.
Yeah, there's actually, like, a YouTube video that he put out of him just, like, explaining his side of everything and saying, like, he actually didn't do anything.
But the fact that she got away with it and not even, like, spent any time in jail for hiring a hitman to kill her husband just seems a little bit odd to me.
No, that's the crazy thing. Like, it's crazy that, like, yeah, she first got away with duress, which actually doesn't, like, apply. And then how, like, the Supreme Court or whatever was like, yeah, duress doesn't apply, but we're not going to, like, bother going through another trial. Like, she didn't actually kill anybody, so let's just let her go.
So weird.
Okay, so that first case was like a small town version of this next case. And this one is more like, air quotes, Hollywood. It has a bit more drama, and therefore it got a lot more attention than the Nicole Doucet case. So this story takes place in the state of Florida, and we have Dalia Dippolito and Michael Dippolito. So it's like another Michael. Do you guys know anything about this case before I get into it?
I've never heard this case at all, so I'm excited to listen and see what it's about.
I feel like maybe the name's, like, vaguely familiar, but I don't really know anything about it.
Yeah, I remember, like, hearing about this case and knowing about it, but I couldn't remember the actual name of the person, so maybe once I get into it, you'll kind of remember a bit more. Because it was semi-famous, I guess. Dalia Dippolito was born Dalia Muhammad, and she was born in New York and had 2 younger siblings. She grew up in a religious household, and she moved to Boynton Beach, Florida when she was 13 years old. And Boynton Beach is in Palm Beach County, so I picture her, like, living, like, this pretty ritzy suburb area. She lived in a gated community just on the outskirts. Dalia says that growing up, she had lots of family time with big family dinners and they had family vacations. So she really had a good upbringing as far as anybody can tell. Reportedly, though, her father cheated on her mother when Dalia was only 17 years old, and they got a divorce and all the kids stayed with their mother. So that was kind of like the only kind of riff in her family life growing up. Dalia grew up and she became a real estate agent, but according to a 2020 documentary called Down Payment on Death, being a real estate agent was like too much work and more work than Dalia was like willing to put in, and she was more interested in like the fast cash or ways to make money a little bit quicker. So she actually starts working as an escort, which, you know, if you're a high-end escort, some people are willing to pay like a big chunk of change for that kind of thing. So that was kind of what she got into, and this is how she actually meets Mike Dippolito. And that 2020 documentary describes Mike as the kind of guy who also kind of wanted to live the high life, have like the lavish lifestyle. He orders Dalia one night as an escort, and they really hit it off. Him and Dalia immediately like start an affair right away. It's almost like love at first sight, if you believe in that kind of thing. And this all happens in October of 2008. So I guess Mike had a kind of a difficult upbringing, very different than Dalia's, and he was kind of looking to fill this void inside of him in his life, according to 2020. And this maybe made him like more vulnerable or more open to people that he shouldn't have been open to. I don't know. But he was actually married when he met Dalia. And so I guess he was looking for something that his marriage just wasn't giving him. So Mike actually had a history of being a con artist. He was in prison for 2 years for running some sort of like stock fraud where he was conning people, mostly elderly people, into buying penny stocks and telling them that these stocks were going to take off really soon. So you basically like had to get in now if you wanted to make it big. But these stocks were basically like nothing stocks. They mentioned that it's kind of like the movie Boiler Room, which I never saw, but it actually reminds me more of like the movie Wolf of Wall Street and how he kind of got started. So anyway, he was conning these people and he was actually just taking their money rather than investing. And so he was making quite a bit of money. He actually steals close to $200,000 from elderly people throughout this scam. And he does serve 2 years for this. And he gets 28 years probation after he gets out, which I feel like is quite a bit.
Sorry, did you say 28 years?
28 years probation, yep.
Wow, that does seem like a lot.
I know. Anyhow, so Mike and Dalia get together and they're both kind of determined to leave their past behind. He's trying to straighten out his life. He's not a con artist anymore, and she's not an escort. They get married almost 6 months after they meet, and this is only 5 days after Mike's divorce is finalized. And they just go down to like the county courthouse and get married. So this story really starts on, I guess I'll start on August 5th, 2009. Dalia leaves to go to the gym, and she tells Mike that she'll grab him a Starbucks on the way home, and she'll see him after the gym. While she's at the gym, around 6:20 a.m. in the morning, she gets a call from Boynton Beach Police Department from Sergeant Ramsey, and they leave her a message on her cell phone saying that she needs to call them back right away, that it's urgent. She calls them back, and they tell her that she needs to get home. They'll tell her everything, but it has something to do with her husband. So she gets there, and there's like police cars and like a camera crew. They're all around her house. There's tape lined up around her house, like the caution tape. They ask her if her husband is Michael. She confirms, and Sergeant Ramsey tells her that her husband has been killed. She immediately starts crying and wailing at the police. You know, she like leans on him for support. And like I said, this is like a really unique situation because there's like a whole camera crew that's like filming this the whole time. And it's actually the reality show Cops is there filming this whole thing when she gets home. So they take her down to the police station because they're trying to figure out who would have done this to her husband. They are asking her who she would think would have wanted him dead. She tells them that, you know, he's on probation, all about his stock fraud. He was in prison for 2 years. She's kind of like trying to steer the police in that direction. And she tells them that he's still on the hook for like owing his victims like $200,000 in restitution, and he's on probation until this gets paid off. She was saying that he was like ready to get off probation early for whatever reason, and that a lot of people were upset about this, like his victims. that he was going to be off probation and just kind of free after that. So she also brings up like a lot of sketchy people from his past that may have been angry with him for various reasons. So she's definitely trying to like get their head into, you know, his past of, you know, ideas of who could have done this to him. She also goes on to say that he's like a recovering alcoholic and he's a drug addict. Like Michael would always try to keep to a really strict schedule to try and stay sober, like just have that regimented routine every day. And she says that he was actually supposed to go to the gym with her that morning, but he was recovering from liposuction surgery, so he had to stay home, and he was kind of like supposed to be staying in bed for a few weeks. So she went to the gym by herself that day. So the police tell her that he was shot twice in the head and that he had been killed. She claims that there was no issues whatsoever in their marriage, like there was no drama, no financial issues. Everything was good, but of course we know like that's rarely the case in these kinds of situations. And while Mike might have thought that was the case, like there was no issues, he kind of felt that their marriage was going really well. I mean, they'd only been married for like 6 months. Dalia was actually like a master manipulator. She was like constantly like working men to get money, to get what she wanted. She would kind of do anything to kind of manipulate them. And she was doing the same thing to Mike. She wanted his house and his money, but maybe really not so much him. So Dalia was involved with a man named Mohammed Shihadi, and he was a businessman who was kind of like a semi-actor or trying to be an actor. And they had met randomly one day because they were kind of both from Middle Eastern descent and they had a lot in common. So they kind of hit it off right away and became friends. And they were actually, at this point, had been friends for over 15 years. He was kind of like a friend that she had sort of friend zoned, I guess. She would talk to him about guys she was dating and she would complain to him about her relationships. But when she needed something or wanted something, she would kind of flirt with him or do whatever she needed to do to get him to do things for her. So it was kind of that kind of relationship. So backtracking a little bit, just a couple days, like July 31st of 2009, this is one of those times when Dalia needed a favor from Mohammed. So she calls him up and she tells Mohammed that Mike is emotionally abusive and that she really wanted out of her marriage, or she just wanted out of the situation. But she didn't just want out, she wanted Mike dead. So she tells Mohammed that she wants to have Mike killed. So Mohammed, I guess, is like smarter than Dalia thinks he is, or he's just kind of worried that if this gets out or something happens, that he's going to get dragged into all this somehow, or the police will find out that he was involved in some way. And he didn't really want to be involved in that. He actually calls the police to tell them what is going on. He tells police that Dalia is planning to murder her husband. But kind of like a weird thing is that even though that he's apparently known her for 15 years, he doesn't know her last name, he doesn't know where she lives, and she doesn't have any information for the police to like figure out who this woman actually is. And so, of course, they need more information. They're kind of taking this seriously. So they asked Mohammed to wear a wire and basically like get her to describe her whole plan for them. They like rig up his whole car and they get like a secret camera in there and they get a wire on him. And Mohammed and Dalia meet up again to discuss the details of what Dalia wants to happen to her husband. She initially says that it's not about the money. She gives Mohammed a down payment of $1,200. And this is all caught on tape, and police see this and know that Mohammed now is serious and that they have like a real serious situation on their hands. So I guess Mohammed tells Dalia that he knows somebody that is willing and has done this before, like a hitman that is willing to do this for her. So he says that he'll kind of get this guy in touch with her, you know. And of course, the guy that hooks up with Dalia is an undercover cop, and he's pretending to be a hitman. So there actually is like a Cops episode on this, the show Cops. It's season 24, episode 3. It's called Smooth Criminal. So yeah, it's like kind of like unique in this case.
Maybe that's how I know the name. I used to watch Cops a lot. Maybe that's why the name's familiar.
Yeah, you might have saw it on there. So yeah, there's like this whole professional like video and audio of her being told that her husband is dead, and they actually go into like the plan they have to set up this whole thing. So it's kind of cool to watch if you want to like check out that Cops episode.
That's kind of, I feel like that's kind of different than the normal things you see on Cops. Like, it's not really the type of stuff they show you on Cops, like, you know.
No, it is really different.
It's more like, you know, them arresting people who are like
Yeah, it's almost like them in like a chase, like chasing some guy with his like pants falling down or something, like over a fence. But this is like really like planned out and like pretty simple. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, they have this undercover cop video of her, and they kind of show this in detail on the show Cops, and they have her like explaining that she is 5,000% sure that she wants this to happen. She's saying that she'll go to the gym in the morning and it won't be suspicious because she usually goes to the gym on a regular basis, so her leaving early is not going to be weird. She describes that Mike usually has a routine of getting up and walking the dogs around 6:30 or 7 a.m. They discuss payment and everything, how she'll give him like $3,000 up front, and then after it's done, he'll like contact her and she'll give him more money after. So yeah, she has multiple attempts to back out of this, but she repeatedly says that she's 5,000% sure and that there's no chance that she's going to change her mind. And again, in the situation, the cop is like, because once I leave here, like it's done, you're not going to be able to get a hold of me. So like as soon as you leave, it's kind of like a done deal. But she never backs out. So in this Cops episode, they do go into detail and they show how they're planning to execute this whole plan of showing up at Dalia's house, telling her that her husband is dead. And like, I don't know if they would have done this whole setup if like reality TV wasn't involved. Like they set up this whole crime scene with the yellow tape, like I said before, like the caution police tape, and all the cop cars with their lights on, and this whole street's blocked off. They show up, they show them going to the door, and they show them going to like Mike's door, knocking on the door, confronting Mike and telling him that his wife has hired someone to kill him. And they actually interview Mike for the show Cops, and he tells them that it only took about a month and a half into their marriage before he started having like weird feelings that something just wasn't right in their marriage. He said that money started disappearing, and somebody kept planting drugs on his truck trying to get him in trouble because he was on probation. And someone put a note on his car, like randomly demanding money, and he would get random phone calls from people demanding money. And he said that he suspected Dalia had planted the drugs at that point because she had already stolen like $100,000 from him for a total of over $200,000. So that's why he like wasn't very surprised when they like showed up and told him about her plot to kill him. That's why I guess he's like relatively calm. He just kind of like sits down on the stairs and he's like, yeah, this is kind of weird, but like nothing crazy. In his interview, he says that he never had so many things consecutively go wrong in his life all in a row until he met Dalia. He's been involved with the police like over 10 times since him and Dalia had met. So, you know, just for like really weird reasons that he said other people kind of looking in on their situation would think are crazy. So he's kind of getting this feeling that, yeah, something's going on and it's because of Dalia. So as far as like a motive for her to want to kill him, of course, like it's money, even though she says it wasn't. He explains that he had just purchased a house and transferred the title over to her just so that he could like straighten out some of his other financial issues. So maybe she's just thinking like she could keep the house to herself if he was gone. He says that he wants to press charges and that she deserves everything that she gets. And so after all this whole setup with the cops and everything, Dalia like is arrested. She's charged with solicitation to commit murder, and she still thinks like Mike is dead at this point after she's been told that she's arrested, after she's being interrogated. And they like just like open the door and they bring Mike in and they're just like, oh, actually, yeah, he's alive, like just joking. And she sees Mike and he's just like, you know, hey. It's like so weird if you watch the episode. And she's just like, oh my god, like Mike, come here, like I didn't do anything, I need to talk to you. And he's just like, no, like I'm done.
So I just have a question. Did they like plan and do that whole sting operation for the show Cops, or were like they going to do it and they just happened to like be like, oh, let's catch this on? Yeah,
so that comes up a little bit later, but that's what I was thinking too. Like, would they have done this whole setup? Like they actually tell her that her husband is dead just to like kind of get her reaction. And I'm like, that must just be for the show, but I don't know. I don't know if they would have done it if the show wasn't there. So.
Because I was going to ask you, why does she think he's dead at this or whatever, like before you said that they brought him out or whatever. But I was thinking, what was the point of telling her that he was dead? Like, was it like you said, just for the show? Or like, because that just seems like a random thing. Like, what would the difference be?
Yeah, it comes up a bit later, and they say like they would have done it anyway, and it's just they were just trying to gather evidence, like to see how she would react if she found out her husband was dead. Like that's kind of their standpoint on it. Like they would have done it anyway. So even after all of this, like in that 2020 episode I had mentioned, like Dalia still claims that she never wanted her husband dead. There are clips of Mike and Dalia's phone conversations while she's in jail, and she's like still denying everything, saying it's not true. And Mike's just like, well, I heard the tapes and like I saw the audio, like I know that it's true. And she's like, no, like I heard what you heard, but it's not true. And she denies that she paid Muhammad the $1,200, you know, even though everything's on tape. And he's like, I heard you say everything and you can't fix it. I can't help you. And he's just like, if you sign the house back over to me, then I'll help you out. And she's just like, no, like, I'm not signing anything over to you. Like, she's still like, I want your house. Like, it doesn't matter. So she's like deep in denial. And so fast forwarding a few years, this is like April of 2011. Dalia is on trial for the first time, and she is facing up to 30 years in prison if she's convicted. She's charged with solicitation to commit first-degree murder. The prosecution kind of portrays Dalia as being very manipulative, and she uses men to get what she wants. And they, of course, have all the video footage of her talking with Muhammad as an informant and the undercover officer. So Dalia's defense is, you know, this is why I say it's like kind of Hollywood. Like, her defense is that she knew that she was being recorded by Muhammad. She claims that her and Mike actually came up with this whole idea of creating a murder for hire video in hopes of like posting it online to social media to gain a reality TV show. Like, they wanted to get famous from this video of her planning to kill him. Her attorneys argue that the hitman scenario was completely fake and that she and Muhammad were actually acting like the whole time. Remember how I had mentioned before that Muhammad was like a semi like quasi actor trying to be an actor? So, you know, maybe this isn't completely out of nowhere. Like, he actually had an agent and a profile like on the agent website and everything. But anyway, they said that Mike was a fan of the show Cops and shows like Cheaters and Jersey Shore. So they were kind of going for like that type of feel for a reality show. And she claims that they all had scripts and that they were just following these scripts the whole time, and that Muhammad told her that he was going to go to the police to even make it more realistic and kind of have like another level to it. Dalia claims that this is when she backed out and she told Muhammad that she didn't want to go to the police, like she didn't want to take it that far. But he went anyway, and then she threatened to quit like their little acting project, but claims that Muhammad was now actually like really being pressured by police because he went and told them this. He's being pressured to be an informant, and when Dalia tries to back out, he like shows her his gun and threatens her that he's going to kill her and hurt her family if she doesn't continue on. But she says that she wasn't aware the whole time that the police were recording, but she does like try and say that this whole thing is just fake. Of course, like, Mike denies everything. He's like, there's no, like, I never want to be on reality TV. Like, this is just, like, dumb. When he's questioned in court, he says that, like, he never talked about a reality show. He never talked to a producer about a reality show. He never wrote a script, never acted about anything. Like, it's just all completely fake. And the defense actually brought in, like, a TV expert, whatever that is, who claimed that people will do, like, really outrageous things to become famous. And the defense claimed that Dalia had done searches on her computer in the past, like on how to get on to reality TV. Anyway, this whole like charade like does not work, and she's actually found guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. And the judge actually called her little murder for hire plot, quote, pure evil. And she's actually sentenced to 20 years in prison. So yeah, like after this conviction, Dalia claims that before the first trial, she had requested to strike the entire jury that was selected, as every one of them had stated that they had heard allegations prior that she had tried to poison her husband. And this was deemed like inadmissible in court. So she thought that they were just kind of like tainted, like their views were tainted of her from the beginning. And she was also denied when she had asked to question the jury about pre-trial publicity, because like 28 of the 54 prospective jurors had already heard about this case beforehand, so it was kind of like bias going in. But they had all her pleas had been denied. And in July of 2014, an appeals court did overturn her first conviction and granted her a second trial because they stated that the jury was improperly selected. While she's waiting like her second trial, she is given house arrest, so she gets out of jail, and she actually gets pregnant and has a son while she's out. So she has her second trial in December, and she's again charged with solicitation to commit first-degree murder. At her second trial, they like abandoned this whole reality TV defense. Whether it's true or not, they just, I guess, don't think it's going to stick this time. And they point the blame more so to like the Boynton Beach Police Department, and they accuse them of misconduct by like staging that fake crime scene for the TV Cops show, saying that like it was a fake scene. It kind of went over the top, and it was just there for the purpose of good television.
Oh, so now they faked it versus her faking it, like she claimed in the... in the first trial or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
This whole case to me is very odd.
It's bizarre, right? It's like, it's like Hollywood. It's like a movie.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to watch the documentary after this is over.
And yeah, so they're saying like, the presence of the Cops TV show kind of like created this whole frenzy that wasn't real. And the Boynton Beach Police Department like denied any wrongdoing. They said that they were just like gathering evidence against Dalia, and they needed to do that to see like her reactions and to see what would happen. Like, so they kind of carried this out. And they said it was just like a coincidence that the cops happened to be filming them during this whole thing. So I don't know if it went to that extreme if Cops TV show wasn't there. Anyway, so they played the tapes again at this trial between Dalia and Muhammad, and Dalia and the undercover cop. And they also claimed that the cops were like pressuring Muhammad, and that they had failed to collect all the recordings from Dalia and Muhammad's meetings. Like, there was over 580 phone calls between them throughout this few days between like her reaching out to Muhammad and actually her getting arrested. Apparently there was like this one meeting at a Chili's restaurant where Dalia claims that Muhammad was threatening her and that he showed her his gun, like when she was saying she didn't want to go to the police. And the police just happened to not have audio of that, like their audio equipment malfunctioned that day. And the defense are saying that they purposely like destroyed or lost it because it would go against their whole like it was true thing. And they're saying like there's multiple situations where Dalia's like fighting, saying she didn't want to go through with this, but there happens to be no record of that. Suspicious? I don't know. Dalia's retrial happened in 2016, and it actually ended with a hung jury. It was like half and half. And so a third trial date is set. And again,
Third trial?
Yeah, so she's a third trial. And so she's again released on house arrest during this time. So June 2017 is when the third trial begins. And this time they bring in like various text messages that have surfaced between Dalia and her ex-boyfriend, another guy named Mike Stanley. And these are the ones about her like planting the drugs on Mike Dippolito's truck in the months leading up to this murder plot. And these texts show just Dalia was telling Mike Stanley that, you know, he was her soulmate and she never felt for anyone else what she felt for him. So just like more manipulation, trying to get him to help her with like planting these drugs and everything. She continually tells him that this was like 1 month before the murder for hire plot, that she can't wait to be with him and she wants to have kids with him, and they'll get a nanny and they'll travel the world. And like even a couple days after that, she's like telling Muhammad like, oh my god, this guy is such a nerd, I can't stand him. Like there's still just like her like just saying whatever she needs to these people. It's kind of crazy. And so further in this trial, they get into points about that how not all of the phone calls between Muhammad, as I was saying before, all the phone calls between Muhammad as an informant and Dalia are not recorded, which is like protocol. So they just decided not to record some of the calls, so they don't have all the evidence. They brought up the fact that Dalia did show reluctance when talking to that hitman. Like the hitman had asked her to bring $3,000 to seal the deal and also bring her house key so that he could get in on that day that he was supposed to, you know, kill Mike. But she didn't follow through with that because she's saying she actually didn't want to do it. So that's why she didn't give him her house key. And they talk about how Dalia was trying to get Mike's bank account frozen by the IRS because he owed restitution, and she wanted to make sure that he didn't spend all his money before his victims were paid back. So they're like, if she's trying to steal all his money, like, why would she freeze his accounts? So that's kind of their defense the third time around.
I love how, like, their defense is different every single time. Like, isn't that like a red flag that, like, they don't know even what's true? They're just like,
I know the first time, like, this didn't work, let's go something else. This didn't work, we gotta come up with something else. And they also claim, like, the police department should have backed off, like, when Dalia was expressing doubt the first time. Like, the whole time, they should have just, like, stopped, but they just kept pushing and pushing. And Muhammad actually claims that he, like, went to the police originally because he felt that Dalia was being abused, and he wanted the police to protect her. And everything just kind of, like, spiraled from there. He didn't want to be involved at all, but he says that they pressured him to be an informant, and that's just kind of how everything happened. And for this third trial, that poisoning that I had mentioned earlier actually came up in the trial. Like, allegedly Dalia had tried to poison Mike before with antifreeze, but because there was, like, no proof of this, like, that's why it wasn't brought up before. But the judge agreed to let it in this third time because the defense was claiming that it was, like, the police that were pushing this whole murder for hire scenario. So the prosecution was like, well, no, she had tried to poison him before, so that's why they brought it in. Anyway, so this third trial ended July 2017, and it only took the jury 90 minutes. And Dalia was again convicted of solicitation to commit first-degree murder, and she was sentenced to 16 years in prison. I know. So yeah, she's finally convicted to 16 years in prison this time. And according to a report from ABC News in 2017, like shortly after the second conviction, so after her third trial, Dalia is heard talking on the phone discussing like a conversation about a man who had broken out of prison by like a drone delivered wire cutters to him, and he like cut through the fence and got out. And so the lawyers are saying that the prosecutors have taken this conversation out of context, and they're saying like, oh, she's actually like a flight risk, like she's a bigger risk than we thought. But her lawyers are just saying, well, she was just talking about it with some guy. So it doesn't actually mean anything. But they're like, the headlines are like, oh, she tries to escape with a drone, like blowing it out of proportion, right? Because it's like this big case now. Yeah, so, and then even in September...
It's so bizarre. Like, it's just so...
That's what I'm saying. Like, this case is crazy.
Like, yeah, I've never heard anything like this in my life.
And it's funny. It's, like, kind of ironic. Like, her first defense was how she was trying to be on, like, a reality TV show. And she actually, ironically, did get on Cops. And she's, like, this famous for, like, doing this. But, you know, didn't turn out the way she wanted.
And, like, you just know that she's loving this publicity. Like, you know, I don't know. Like, you have to think that she's, like, loving all the attention that the case is getting.
Oh yeah, I know. And like they're still fighting. Like even as late as like September 2019, like they rejected a request from her to review her 2017 conviction. Like she's still thinking it's not fair. But the Supreme Court denied looking at that conviction again. So she's still in jail, but her like lawyers are still fighting for her. I'm just trying to think like what does she have left to fight? Like she's on tape. Everyone's denying that it was like a plot. You know, like a reality TV plot, and it's just gone too far. Like, I don't know what else she has to stand on. Like, I feel like video and audio, or like, what more evidence do you need?
So bizarre to me, this case. Like I said, I don't think I've ever heard anything like this. Like, I don't think I've ever heard anything going to, like, 3 trials, for one. And, like, almost the same outcome, except for the second one. But
I know, I feel like it's hard to get, like, an appeal to start with. Like, you hear lots of times where they apply for an appeal and it gets rejected, but somehow she has 3 trials. And she's still in jail because of it. But she's still denying that she's guilty of anything.
I think she just needs to give in and face reality that she did it and she got caught, and now she just needs to do her time and get out.
I mean, I'll give her points for persistence. She's not giving up, but maybe she should, because clearly she's guilty.
Yeah, I always find like hitman cases are so interesting because it's like people have the nerve to think they can get away with something like that, and it's just crazy that like they don't realize that it's undercover cops. I don't know. I don't know how you'd ever trust that someone's not a cop if you don't know them already, right? Like,
so what's Mike doing these days then?
I think Mike's remarried. Like he's moved on, and
I hope so. God.
Yeah, he's definitely like over her. He's like, oh my god. Obviously he made that like a bad decision to like hook up with this escort and then marry her. Like, Jesus. Maybe like hold back a bit, but
she probably manipulated him into marrying her somehow.
I mean, she was just after his money, right? Like she wanted his house and his money, and it's just crazy that she was like trying to get him back in jail after he was like on probation, and she was like planting drugs on his car like more than once. Like it happened twice. He talks about it. Like there's videos of him talking about it in court and stuff, and there's random phone calls that she like asked guys she knew to like call him demanding money, and like she couldn't get him back in jail, so she's like, hey, I just gotta get rid of him because I want his fucking townhouse. Like, Jesus. So yeah, that's that.
Wow, like that was a weird. Okay, what was the episode and season number of that Cops? I want to watch this Cops episode now.
Me too. I want to watch it too.
Like I remember Steph, you and I used to watch Cops like all the time if I was over there.
We did. And like, we always watched it.
Yeah, but I've never seen anything like this on Cops before. Like,
no, me neither.
Sting operation.
Okay, so it's season 24, episode 3. It's called Smooth Criminal.
I don't know though. It is interesting though. Like, there's actual like articles and like professional papers written about like people's like fascination with reality television and people who are just so. It's like so weird. Like reality television is kind of fascinating in and of itself. Like people's like desire, like they want to like they aspire to, you know, be on a show like Jersey Shore or something trashy like that. And it's just weird to think that that would be. I don't know.
But yeah, even if this was a whole plot to get on reality TV, like I feel like it's not impossible to think that she could have even taken it this far to be like, yeah, this will get me on TV, and then I'll get out of this somehow because they'll know it's not real, and then I'll just become famous. Maybe even, I don't know.
Like the lengths that people are willing to go to become a reality TV star or to become famous for.
Yeah, it's not unreasonable to think that, you know, she would do that just to get on TV.
Yeah, she seems like a piece of work.
I hate the fact like that she was going to be a real estate agent, but it was too slow of a business for her. Maybe she should wait till now when the real estate business is booming. Anyways.
Yeah. Or if she wanted to be on reality TV, she should have just waited a few years. Like, fucking go on The Circle or something.
Or like
Big Brother 23.
Or like do what other people do, like normally, like audition for things. I feel like if you're gonna be on TV, like why choose Cops? Like the trashiest TV show you could possibly think of. Not besides like Jersey Shore and that, but still.
I don't know. Some people will do anything.
Why do you want to be famous for a cop show? Like nobody on that TV show is like memorable, really.
Well, I mean, I guess if that's if you believe that defense, like her.
I guess,
defense.
yeah.
But,
yeah, everybody else denies it though. Like they're saying it's not true.
Yeah.
Like, but imagine if it was true and they just like totally did her dirty and are like, not true.
Yeah,
like, put her in jail. And she's like, fuck, like that'd be so frustrating. It's crazy though, because they're saying like if it was real and she actually did hire a real hitman, like she'd be on death. Like she could have got the death penalty for it because Florida still has a death penalty. So I guess she like dodged a complete bullet from that. But
was it actually true? Like we don't know if it was actually true though. Do we?
I mean, the way she's talking to the hitman, like she's like, yeah, like I'm on 5,000% sure, like I want this to happen. She's like, I'm not backing out, and she like describes his routine, what he's going to be doing that day, and she's like, he's going to the bank. So if you want like $10,000 extra, you can like rob him while he's on the way from the bank. Like she's describing like his whole day and everything. So I don't know. It's kind of crazy. There's like so many recordings that they have of her talking to Muhammad and the hitman. So yeah. It's interesting.
Crazy. It's like a unique case. I've never really heard anything quite like it. So
yeah, like I never heard of this specific case, but I've like.
I don't think I saw that Cops episode. Like it doesn't seem.
No,
familiar,
I don't think so.
But...
Me neither. I've watched a lot of Cops episodes, unfortunately. So like more than I would like to admit.
This is a unique one, but I've never heard of like the cops setting up like a fake crime scene like that to like kind of entrap somebody. I guess it's legal because like cops are allowed to say stuff that's not true, just say like see what they can get out of you, right? Which seems a little bit borderline sketchy in some situations.
Seems illegal. In some,
it does seem like entrapment, right? Like you're saying something just to get something out of somebody else. Like that whole Mr. Big situation that we had talked about before. That's Canada. This is the States, but yeah. It seems like they maybe took it too far, but like they're like, no, we're just, trying to see her reaction. And like she did act like somebody that was just told her husband had been killed. I mean, I guess even if it was a whole thing that she thought it was fake, and then her husband ends up dead, like she would be devastated. But I don't know. It's just a whole weird case. It's super interesting.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's not where I thought this case was going. I thought like you were gonna say like he actually died, but it was actually fake. He just walks into the room. Here I am. Hello. So anyway, it is super interesting. That's why this one got like a lot more attention because, right, like I said, it is like almost like a movie.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So that's the end of that case. So yeah, if you like what you hear, you can follow us on Instagram at Crime Family Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Crime Family Pod 1, or our Facebook page is Crime Family Podcast. We also have an email address if you want to send us like case information or feedback, comments, anything. You can send that to crimefamilypodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.